Tiki, if I'm a fan of the Lions, I would just, I was thinking about this. Like, I would rather just draft scrubs and guys that play a year and get hurt and fizzle out and busts.
The work hard guys, the blue collar guys.
Than having to deal with the torment of getting a transcendent player once every, 2.5, 3 decades, like the great Barry Sanders and now the great Megatron, and watching them prematurely retire. If I'm a Lions fan, I'm sitting there saying, we're not going to win anyway. I mean, we haven't won something since, 58? We're not going to win a Super Bowl. So I don't even want to deal with the heartbreak of getting to know these guys and seeing them leave when they're 30.
You don't want greatness in the locker room, on the field.
Not if it doesn't materialize with the championship, because I think the heartbreak offsets it.
I feel like this has been lingering around
brutal
Megatron for a couple of years now. And I was trying to – it's weird this season in 2015, because despite his 1,214 yards and 13.8, almost 14 yards per reception and 9 touchdowns, didn't it feel like he was kind of invisible? A lot of it was because of the season. The season was a wash, and after they went on that losing streak, and then Coach Caldwell had to start figuring things out and firing people, firing the coordinators, changing things around. And they started to win some games down the stretch, but it still felt like season was over. But Megatron's name wasn't on the tip of our consciousness like it usually is, especially after some of those unbelievable seasons that he had, like in 11 and 12, where in 11 he had 16 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, and in 2012 we all know he almost got to 2,000 receiving yards, which is unprecedented. That just doesn't happen in football. So he battled with some injuries. I know this because I went through it. The toll physically starts catching up with you, and then mentally, the preparation and how am I going to go do this again? How am I going to go through another offseason? How am I going to, spend 17 weeks, especially if we're going to struggle and lose again? It becomes less fulfilling. You become less passionate about it. And you felt like this was trickling in last year, but after a good year, I didn't think that this would be it, especially the way they finished the season in 2015. But it's looking like he's going to hang it up. Now, he hasn't spoken yet. It hasn't been confirmed. There's been no press conference. But he's told basically the Lions that he's done. It's shocking. I agree with you, BT. I mean, the torment in Detroit continues simply because even your best players don't want to be there right now. And it maybe has nothing to do with Detroit, but it probably has a lot to do with Detroit.
I've got an idea. If I'm the Lions brought in some new people to start running the ship here. And you know what I'm doing? I'm looking at this as an opportunity. If I'm a Lions executive right now,
You trade them?
I'm gonna. You know who I'm calling?
Who?
First call I make, my former employer, the Pats. Say, listen, we both know, as much as Tom says you're gonna play 7 more years, we all know that's not a reality. We all know that Gronk is, he's always a hit away, as everybody is. But it seems like he really gets dinged up a lot, and that Edelman and Amendola, this current crop of players are going to be around forever. How about you give us a 3rd-round pick for Megatron? Let's make it happen. Let's get something. Go win one final championship with Tom. I think we're kind of getting to that point now where we can no longer just pencil them in as the AFC rep, obviously.
Well, we said that last year, and it's been how many years in a row that they –
But I think the division's finally better.
Yeah, that's catching up.
That's a big part of it.
Of course. Like, the Jets aren't a pushover anymore. The Bills are – they're taking steps in the right direction. Who knows what's going to happen in Miami? But you got to assume it's going to be better than it was. And, look, their season this – but and when I look at Detroit, why would you let Megatron go? Why would you willingly push him out the door when after the bye week, right? Their bye week was week 8. They were one of the few teams that they had the bye week right in the middle of their season. They were terrible in the first half of the season. They were 1-7. But after the bye week, they were 6-2 with 2 3-game win streaks. One, right after the bye week, and one to finish the year. Now the teams they were beating weren't.
You have the schedule.
Yeah.
Who they beat again?
They beat the Packers. But that was in the middle of the year when the Packers were, they were
that
off.
was in Lambeau, first time in 20 years. That's right.
They were off. Then they beat the Raiders. Then they beat the Eagles. Then they lost to Green Bay the second time.
And those aren't terrible teams at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. They lost to and they blew out the Eagles, by the way. That was, remember, the second 45-point game.
On Thanksgiving.
Yeah, for the Eagles.
Yep.
Then they lost to the Green Bay Packers.
On a Hail Mary.
Close game, exactly.
Oh.
They lost to the Rams, and that was a touchdown game. So, again, playing good. It's not like they were out of it.
Haven't heard a bad team yet, by the way.
No.
Not a bad team.
They beat the Saints. They beat the 49ers.
And those are two bad
and then
ones.
they beat the Bears. And the Bears aren't, they weren't horrible this year. They weren't competing for the playoffs, but they weren't bad. So they won some good games, and the ones down the stretch that they lost, they actually played pretty well in and should have won, especially the one against the Green Bay Packers. And so if Megatron is thinking about playing and I'm the Detroit Lions, I want him with me. I want him here. There's no way I'm sending his rights out to someone else and thinking I'm going to be better than I was last year. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a tough situation, but if your heart isn't into it, then
you've already retired.
You've already retired.
Essence.
You're right. And a lot of guys their hearts aren't into it. They just go collect a paycheck.
Yep.
And he's made 115 or something million.
Has he made that much
over the course of his career? Yeah, I think that T.O. might have been. I forgot. I saw this stat. I think it was T.O. I can't remember who it was now. Was the only wide receiver that has made more than him. Now, that may change, obviously, going forward because of the way contracts are for some of these wide receivers, but he made $115 million. And he's not worried about, where his next meal's coming from. This is a passion thing. At least if I'm asking, if I'm asking him a question, the first one I'm asking is, tell me your passion for the game. Is it gone? Because that's the only reason I would see him doing this. He had a good year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What do you have, 87, 88 catches, something like that, 1,200 yards?
Yep.
It was a little bit better than I thought. When I looked at him last night, I said, wow.
And 9 touchdowns, agreed.
A little sneaky good there from Megatron.
But we didn't talk about it.
Nah, because they were.
Exactly.
The storyline with them was, when is their coach going to get fired?
Exactly.
Now, and, are they the ownership issues with Mrs. Ford, who came out and spoke? She's, 92-year-old matriarch of the franchise. So, I don't know. I'll tell you what I would do. If I was in the NFL and I was a guy like, Megatron is the top, the half of 1% of the best. So he's probably not the best example. But maybe somewhere in between a guy who is a special teamer trying to hang on and above that and below one of the truly iconic players. If I was in the middle and I had enough money, I would get out. With all my faculties, I know it's easier said than done.
Your knees are still intact.
I'm more worried about my brain. I could always get a knee replacement and play golf when I'm 60.
Yeah, your brain is still intact.
And just make some money and transition to the broadcast booth, and you go from there.
And he's a smart, good-looking guy.
He is. He carries himself very well.
Yep.
Remember that commercial he made with
with the suits.
Not with Jay-Z, that one, but also with Diddy? He made a commercial. Mike, what was that? About 5 or 6 years. It may have been Jay-Z. And it was basically like, yeah, you do your thing, and I'm going to take care of the marketing stuff. It may have been a Beats. It was definitely a musical rap genre
it's probably Beats, because Beats was so involved.
But I think it was before Beats, because the Beats really took off a couple of years ago with Kaepernick and those guys.
Yeah.
He's made some money, and he's a polished guy.
Yeah, we were trying to look at in the break. We're trying to look at guys who, like myself, retired at the top, like had a good season and then said, "I'm done." And honestly, there's not a ton of them. There's tons of names.
Let's hear some names.
The guys that left. Like Christian Okoye. People,
our buddy Christian Okoye.
Yeah, he only played 6 seasons.
We love the Nigerian Nightmare. How great was that guy?
Tiki.
We met him at the Super Bowl last year, right?
Tiki and Tierney.
There he is.
Tiki and Tierney.
There he is.
We're not correcting you.
Looks still pretty juiced up, pretty jacked.
We're not correcting you, Mr. 250-pound.
Sounds correct, sir.
Tiki and Tierney.
That he is. But he played 6 years. His 5th year, he had 1,000 yards rush. And his last year, 400 yards. It's like it didn't have that elite year and then walk away. The only ones that we kind of came up with were Barry, who played 10 seasons, had a huge last season. Jim Brown, who did it for a lot of different reasons, including that he wanted to act in the Dirty Dozen. And then Robert Smith. There just weren't a ton of them that have done it at the top of their careers. And he's only 30 years old. He's got some years left in him. It's not like he's a running back either, where he's getting the crap beat out of him.
True.
300 times a game. 300 times a season, I should say. So
he's not in the middle of the field that much. He's, I'm not saying he hasn't been popped. I'm sure he has, but it was P. Diddy. It was a Nike with Calvin. It was basically like P. Diddy saying, you handle your business on the field, and I'll take care of the stuff. I thought it was Diddy or Jay-Z. All right, so when you go through this process, you were different because you knew that you had a big opportunity with NBC.
Yep.
You knew you had a lot of options, but when does that end? You actually brought that up in the middle of the season. Or you knew in the middle of the season, you came out in the middle of the season.
I knew at the beginning of the season, really. It came out in the middle of the season because of a New York Times writer who was following me around, all the things that I was doing. But, you know, my situation was different than Calvin's, right? Because with me, it was, yes, I'm beat up. I'm touching the ball 400 times a year. I don't think we're going to be good in the near future. Obviously, they went and won a Super Bowl the next year, but that's irrelevant.
Would that have changed your mind if you thought you guys had a real chance to win?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to prepare anymore. And more importantly, there were so many other things that I wanted to do, right? I was in the middle of writing books. We had 12 children's books me and my brother did. You know, I had lunch with Secretary of State Rice in the State Department. You know, I took a trip to Israel. Like, all these different things that were very interesting to me were starting to grab more and more of my attention. So instead of being out with Joe Carini, deadlifting 500 pounds in the offseason, I was doing everything else other than prepare. So the passion that had always put me into the weight room, into the preparation room, was gone. And I knew it. And so rather than do a disservice to me.
When did you know it?
I kind of knew it midway through the season before in 05. And it was kind of like, God, I was having a great year that year.